PC leader Tim Hudak announces his new plan for Northern Ontario. Another murder sentence delayed by the absence of a key report. And the U.S. Navy shipyard in Washington targeted in a mass shooting.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The Ontario Conservatives have laid out their plan for Northern Ontario, but it remains unclear what benefits the region could see.
Progressive Conservative leader Tim Hudak was in Thunder Bay today to talk about his party's Paths to Prosperity plan. But Hudak didn't get into specifics about the issues affecting our region, including job creation. Hudak, along with MPPs Norm Miller and Laurie Scott, as well as local PC candidates Harold Wilson and Tamara Johnson, unveiled the report earlier today. The group also held a roundtable with business owners at the Norwester Hotel. At the news conference, Hudak touched on a number of topics, including the Ring of Fire and the Thunder Bay Generating Station. But when pressed for details about creating jobs in the region, especially in the forest industry, he would not provide details.
We've laid out our plan. We've laid out our division, our visions of what's going to happen in this province, and it's all about jobs and the economy, making us number one again. Right across the province, I see us bringing back, for example, at least 300,000 jobs in advanced manufacturing. We've lost 40% of the jobs in the forest sector here. Enough is enough. It's time for a turnaround.
The only detail provided came from Wilson, who mentions the reopening of a sawmill in the region. Other highlights from the plan include Hudak's appointment of a provincial minister to oversee the entire Ring of Fire project, and also the goal of getting 10 new mines online over the next 5 years.
Minister of Northern Development and Mines, Michael Gravel, has responded to the Conservatives' plan. In a statement, Gravel claims Hudak doesn't know the facts. The Thunder Bay Superior North MPP reiterated the Liberal government's commitment to Northern Ontario through the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund and the Northern Highways Program, which he says have invested almost $6 billion in the region since 2003. Gravel also emphasized the importance of the Ring of Fire, but says the work with all of their partners must be done right.
Meanwhile, the leader of the Ontario NDP was in town yesterday as the keynote speaker at the party's Northern Council meeting. Andrea Horwath called the situation surrounding the Thunder Bay Generating Station a game of political football. Horwath says the ruling Liberals tend to forget promises made after taking the reins of power. She calls the generating station's halted conversion to natural gas a perfect example of that. Horwath says it has been clear for some time that the issue is not just access to electricity, but reliable access that's ongoing. Horwath added that the North would not be ignored if she were elected Premier. She believes that an economic opportunity is being wasted by the Liberals.
In the interim, to push the Liberals to make the right decision for the Northwest and make sure that we get reliable access to power, because there's, as I said in my speech, some at least 9 mines that I've been told about that are either being developed or that are being reopened that need to be able to access that power to be able to be in production.
Horwath says people want access to electricity, and this is what the plan will do. She says she will continue to push the province to make it happen, calling the lack of commitment to conversion shameful.
Today marks 1 year since a large group of scientists took to Parliament Hill to demonstrate the importance of basic and applied science in government decision-making. So to mark the anniversary, the Thunder Bay chapter of the Council of Canadians held a demonstration of their own. Around 15 people gathered at MP John Rafferty's office and walked up and down Simpson Street carrying signs to raise public awareness. Council Chair Tom Cook says the Harper government is putting more money than ever into science, but only applied science. Cook says that without basic science, which is more about experimentation and discovery, applied science won't have the extra research needed to fully function.
And we're trying to send a message to the federal government that just doing applied science is shortcutting everybody. You need to have the basics before you can do the advanced, and you get better results because of it.
Similar groups are rallying across Canada to raise awareness for the cause.
Thunder Bay City Councillor Aldo Roberto hopes that he has swayed enough of his council colleagues to vote in favor of a new pet bylaw. A little more than a month ago, that bylaw to limit the number of pets a household can have was shot down in a tight 6-5 vote. That decision is up for ratification at City Hall tonight, but the resolution has also been tweaked. In addition to taking a look at limiting the number of cats and dogs per household, Roberto also wants a report on improving communication between animal control and the Humane Society. Council will also be asked tonight to sign a new deal with the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation. The latest agreement provides 4% of the revenue from live gaming tables. That's expected to fetch an additional $84,000 each year. The city has been receiving roughly $2.4 million every year through quarterly payments. Since opening in August of 2000, the local casino has given $31.6 million back to the city.
Where there's a will, there's a way. The new campaign launched today is aimed at people preparing their will and encourages them to consider a charitable recipient. It's something many people often leave to the last minute. 6 local groups, including the George Jeffrey Children's Fund and the St. Joseph's Foundation, have joined together to form the Community Giving Partnership. The goal is to raise awareness of the benefits of leaving gifts to local charities in your will. Dawn Ironside says already gotten on board. She recently had a sudden loss in the family due to pancreatic cancer. Now with her updated will, she knows that when she passes on, some money will go to a cause she believes in.
So we spoke to our lawyer. We were having grandchildren coming at the same time, and we changed our wills to reflect, in our particular case, a learning environment into pancreatic cancer research here in this city. In our case, it was the medical school, but it can be any charity, really.
More information on the Community Legacy Giving Partnership is available from the St. Joseph's Foundation and the other participating charities.
It was a busy early morning for Thunder Bay firefighters. Just after midnight, they were called to the Bowater Sawmill on Darrell Avenue. An overheated bearing caused a small fire in a chip bin. And just after 1 a.m., crews attended a home on Blucher Avenue where there was a fire in the back of a residence. It was brought under control quickly, but there was some interior damage to the kitchen. The cause remains under investigation.
Thunder Bay police are looking for a man involved in an armed robbery at an Arthur Street restaurant last night. The incident happened at the Tokyo House at around 9 o'clock. Police say a man entered the restaurant, pulled out a large knife, and demanded money from the staff. This surveillance video shows the man police are looking for. A group of employees tried to subdue him but were unsuccessful, and he fled the scene. Police are looking for a Caucasian man, about 27 years old, with a thin build and dark shirt and pants. Anyone with information about the incident is asked to call Thunder Bay Police or Crime Stoppers.
And city police caught the attention of onlookers and social media on Saturday afternoon with a unique arrest involving an ice cream truck. That arrest took place on Merrill Street in the Current River area. Officers with the police service took a 44-year-old man into custody without incident just after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The man was driving an ice cream truck when he was stopped by the officers. Since then, hundreds of people have shared photos and video of the incident on Facebook. Police offered very little information about the incident, saying only that the man was arrested on an outstanding warrant for breach of release orders. There is no word on what his previous conviction was for, but he has since been released from custody and is now expected to appear in court at a future date. As for the ice cream truck, well, it had to be towed from the area following the arrest as it was obstructing the roadway.
Hearing put on hold. It's the second time this month that a convicted murderer has seen his case adjourned due to delays in obtaining a Gladue report. 34-year-old Joseph Wesley was originally charged with second-degree murder but pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter back in June. The homicide occurred in a bush area just north of Inner City Shopping Center last summer. 65-year-old Adam Yellowhead was found with fatal injuries, and Wesley was arrested days later in Kenora. The case sparked an internal investigation within the city police force after an email was accidentally sent to Thunder Bay Media referring to Wesley as the fresh breath killer. The final hearing was scheduled for today, but the Gladue report wasn't made available until this morning. It helps the judge take into account the unique background of Aboriginal offenders. The report was ordered on June 27th but didn't commence until late August. The case was adjourned until next week. A similar situation occurred last Monday for murder suspect Leif Hobson. His sentencing hearing was delayed for 2 weeks because the Gladue report wasn't completed.
An OPP dive team has recovered the body of a U.S. man who went missing last Thursday while fishing on Northern Lights Lake. The man and a female companion were in the Trafalgar Bay area of the lake when their boat struck something in the water, ejecting both occupants. The woman, who was wearing a life jacket, managed to swim to a nearby island. She was found by another passing fisherman. The victim, however, was not wearing a life jacket. He's been identified as 59-year-old Dennis Todd of Jefferson City, Missouri. Meantime, another search that began last Thursday along the English River near Ear Falls continued today. Two duck hunters fell into the water Wednesday evening when their vessel capsized. One of the men managed to make it to shore and was found the next morning, but there has been no sign of his companion ever since. OPP Marine units and family members resumed their search efforts earlier today, aided by an OPP helicopter.
The Anishinaabe Police Service officially has a new chief of police. The change of command ceremony was held today at the NAPS headquarters in Thunder Bay. Terry Armstrong will now take the helm, replacing Bob Herman, who held the acting position since January of this year. Cheryl Holmes reports the new chief calls it a great honor.
Standing in front of a room full of people, Terry Armstrong pledged an oath of allegiance to the Anishinaabe Police Service. He's now taken official command of the largest First Nation police service in Canada.
It's quite an honor to be selected as the next chief for the Anishinaabe Police Service and to represent policing in the Anishinaabe Nation. It's quite an honor for me.
Terry is a lot of experience in First Nations policing, and I know him personally. I know that he'll be a very good chief for the Anishinaabe Police Service. So on one side, I'm very, very pleased about that. On the other side, it's a little bit sad. I mean, when you put your heart and soul into a police service for a short period of time, to leave it is quite emotional. So, I know NAPS is in good hands, and I know as a police service we're moving forward, and I'm sure that the new chief will continue to do that.
Armstrong most recently served as deputy chief with the Treaty 3 Police Service. He previously served on various OPP detachments. Armstrong says he's ready to take on the challenges facing the police service. He calls the process so far very informative.
They've got a pretty good blueprint for the future in respect to infrastructure, staffing, all those things, and those will be the big things going forward. Is to ensure that we continue to get the proper infrastructure, proper training for our officers, and to ensure the staffing levels are kept at a level that we can properly protect the people of the citizens of Nan.
As for Herman, he says he'll be around for a couple more months before moving on by the end of the year.
There's still a couple of projects that I'm working on for the Anishinaabe Police Service, so I'll be here for a few more months to complete those projects, but once they're completed, then I'm going into retirement again.
Cheryl Holmes, TVT News.
Thousands of people gathered across Canada yesterday to participate in the annual Terry Fox Runs. Now, that event has raised close to $12 million for cancer research last year alone. As Courtney Rutherford reports, Thunder Bay residents hold a special place in their hearts for a man who was filled with so much courage and perseverance.
I was on my way to university and I saw him running up the hill just outside of Nipigon.
Barb Phillips is one of millions of Canadians who remember Terry Fox and his journey. It was 1980 and Terry Fox had been running across Canada on a prosthetic leg to raise funds for cancer research. After running almost a marathon each day for 143 days, Terry was forced to stop when the cancer recurred in his lungs.
We got to go home and try and do some more treatment. But all I can say is that if there's any way I can get out there again and finish it, I will.
His marathon of hope stopped here in Thunder Bay, and Fox was never able to finish. His battle had come to an end, but the fight for cancer research did anything but.
This is the 33rd annual Terry Fox Run, and over those 33 years, over $600 million has been raised. That's a lot of money that's gone into cancer research. And in fact, I read in the Globe and Mail yesterday, they profiled a young fellow who had the same cancer that Terry had. Today, if Terry had that cancer, because of the research, he'd be alive and well and wouldn't have lost his leg.
84 cents of every dollar raised goes directly to cancer research. To this date, the Terry Fox Foundation has raised over $600 million for cancer research worldwide. And over 1,100 cancer research projects have been funded by the foundation. There's a reason why it continues to touch just about everyone.
Well, I've lost both parents to cancer. My dad was a cancer survivor, and then it got him about 40 years later. So I have an affinity for anything that raises money to help for cancer research.
We're from Lakehead University, and we did it last year in Milton, Ontario, near Toronto. We're running for our close neighbor, Jeff Roy, and back in Milton a couple summers ago, he died of cancer.
Each year, just over 500 people come together at Boulevard Lake to participate in the event. Local organizers expect by the end of the day, the Thunder Bay Run will have raised just over $30,000. Courtney Rutherford, TPT News.
Eco Superior has installed one of the first of its kind, a bicycle locker on the city's north side. With help from the Ontario Trillium Foundation, the new secure box will help staff choose active transportation for their commute rather than driving. The box can be locked by a key and keeps bikes out of view in hopes of preventing theft. The space has room for 2 bikes, and Raphael Shea, energy building coordinator for Eco Superior, says the purchase is all part of promoting the benefits of active transportation.
Piece of it is really important too, because over here we have a classic inverted U-rack bicycle lock where people can lock their bikes in, and that's perfect if you're going in for a quick little visit somewhere. But if you're leaving your bike there for the whole day, it can start to wear on you, and you can start to get stressed out about bikes getting stolen, which does happen far too often in this city.
Shea says he hopes that others will eventually catch on and purchase a similar bike locker for their business.
Turning to weather now, not a bad day to be on the bike, Fiona, as we approach the final weekend or final week of summer.
Yeah, lots of sunshine today. It was absolutely gorgeous out there. A touch cooler, although we did have all that sunshine. There is warmer air coming in behind it. Cool air from the northwest is basically what we felt for most of the day, which is why we topped out only at a high of 15. And the winds were a little bit blustery, but the good thing is it's starting to come around from the south, which means things are going to warm up. But we are currently at our high for the day. Been there for about 3 or 4 hours, actually. So it's been fairly consistent across the board. 16, 17 Celsius seems to be the magic number in most areas, and lots of sunshine. Now tonight, those clear skies means another cool evening. Last night, or actually it was first thing this morning, we dipped below the freezing mark to -1 Celsius. So there was a little bit of frost. Doesn't look like we are going to be seeing that again tonight, a low of 4, and winds are going to be out of the west-southwest, very light at about 11 kilometers per hour. As we head into Tuesday, we get that warmer air behind the high, a little bit more humidity and a little bit more heat, which is going to stick around for at least a couple of days. Unfortunately, by late in the week, we could be in for some more cool air, so the cooling trend is obviously, as we get further into fall, continuing, but at least we will have a couple of days, possibly as many as 3, of some above seasonal temperatures, which is always kind of nice at this time of year. And I'll have more details on what we can expect for the rest of the week and how soon you're going to need those umbrellas again. It's later on in the news hour.
All right, thanks very much, Fiona. More than a dozen people are dead following the latest shooting rampage south of the border, this time in the Washington, D.C. area. We'll have the latest on that story and more as your Monday News Hour continues.
We are confronting yet another mass shooting.
There has been another mass murder in the United States, this time at a Navy yard in the capital, Washington, D.C.
At least 12 people are dead, as well as one gunman. A manhunt is on for one other potential suspect. Paul Hunter reports.
First thing this morning at the Washington, D.C. Navy Yard, mayhem.
I heard 3 shots, pow, pow, pow. 30 seconds later, I heard 4 more shots, and a couple of us that were in the cafeteria knew they were shots, and we started panicking, and then we was trying to decide which way we were going to run out.
Somewhere in this huge military office complex not far from the U.S. Capitol building, someone had opened fire, killing and wounding at random. Among those shot, a local police officer.
But we saw him hold the rifle, then we saw him raise it and aim it in our direction.
I feel very lucky to be alive, so I was standing in between you and I. Another guy next to me got shot, I didn't.
For all the madness in this country, it rang sadly familiar. As Barack Obama put it,
we are confronting yet another mass shooting.
Yet another, he said, just months after his push to toughen gun laws here largely failed.
And as this investigation moves forward, we will do everything in our power to make sure whoever carried out this cowardly act is held responsible.
The whole area was in a lockdown. For those who lived nearby, they were told to keep out as authorities tried to figure out what was happening.
We have no known motive at this stage. There were people who asked earlier if this was a terrorist event. We don't have any reason to think that at this stage, but we're continuing that investigation to try to determine what the motive is.
Then, late in the day, this.
We can confirm that the deceased shooter from this morning has been identified as 34-year-old Aaron Alexis of Fort Worth, Texas.
Yet another, as was underlined, this time in the U.S. Capitol. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
The United Nations says it now has absolute proof of a chemical weapons attack in Damascus back on August 21st, but it doesn't identify who did it. Hundreds of men, women, and children died. Susan Ormiston reports.
Undeniably, UN inspectors found the nerve agent sarin on the ground, in the air, and in 85% of blood samples from the victims. The deadly payload was launched in surface-to-surface rockets on August 21st in Damascus. Chemical residue found on a majority of rocket fragments.
The results are overwhelming and indisputable.
The largest attack in 25 years, he said, a war crime. But who's to blame?
So this is not a
For the Syrian opposition, the regime's signature is clear.
We said from the day one that according to our sources, we are 100% sure that chemical weapons have been used, and we're also 100% sure who used them.
With evidence established, the momentum turns on diplomacy. Already the U.S. and Russia are at odds over what penalties if Syria doesn't turn in its chemical weapons.
If Assad fails to comply with the terms of this framework, make no mistake, we are all agreed, and that includes Russia, that there will be consequences.
At this table, that means use of force. But Russia's foreign minister said the threat of force has not been agreed on. Shelling continued today inside Syria, a reminder that conventional weapons are killing more.
The government has continued its relentless campaign of air bombardment and artillery shelling across the country.
This UN committee probing 14 other alleged chemical attacks. Next steps in Damascus and New York. Syria has a week to identify its chemical weapons, and the Security Council has to come up with a resolution which will inevitably provoke disagreement. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Toronto.
The massive job of trying to refloat the wreck of the Costa Concordia got underway today on the Italian coast. The cruise ship ran up on the rocks almost 2 years ago with the loss of 32 lives. Sasha Petrusek reports.
In the darkness of the early morning, it almost looked as if the Costa Concordia would have to stay put for another day. Bad weather overnight had left key equipment out of place. But as the sun appeared, cables tightened, hydraulics were pushed to the limit. The massive passenger liner rose from the sea. It happened so slowly, the movement of the dirty water line was the only clue. That and the announcement that this unprecedented engineering project was underway. Luciano Castro was watching today. He survived this shipwreck. This tragedy was unexpected and violent, he says. It burst into our lives. The dirty water line rose some more. Another person watching closely, preparing his high-tech equipment, was Canadian Hubert Palais.
This is the laser head, and this is the sensor head.
His Ontario company will have the job of scanning for damage on the side of the ship that's been lying on the rocky bottom, so salvagers know what to do next.
They've never seen the hull underneath the rock, so once it's upright, they need as much data about it as possible.
Late today, there was one hitch. 4 cables got tangled, forcing the massive operation to briefly grind to a halt. Then it continued. The waterline continued to rise, the ship to straighten. Of course, even once the ship is perfectly straight, this job is far from over, and so is the uncertainty. The ship still will need to be floated and eventually dragged into port on the mainland. There it'll be taken apart at the end of the Costa Concordia story. Sasha Petrusek, CBC News, Giglio Island, Italy.
Demonstrators turned out across Canada today, including, as we told you earlier, here in Thunder Bay, for an event called Stand Up for Science. The protesters aren't happy with the federal government. They say Ottawa is cutting funding for research and pressuring scientists to keep quiet about their work. Marco McDermott has more.
Scientists in 18 cities across the country swapped their experiments for placards today.
When people like me start showing up wearing their lab coats having come from their laboratory, things are looking pretty bleak.
Scientists say the federal government is chopping funding for research, like freshwater studies at the experimental lakes area in Ontario and on climate change. And they say they're being muzzled, told not to talk about their work to the public or even colleagues.
The information that is collected by scientists is not getting out there in the public space. And that means that Canadians are uninformed about important scientific issues.
Recent work on melting Arctic ice is an example. An American researcher who worked with Canadians on the study was told to sign a gag order and not to talk about his work.
They were trying to shut me up.
The Canadian government eventually changed the request, but Moon Chow is now wary about working with Canadian scientists.
It's much easier right now, from my perspective, to work with people in Denmark, in Germany, in Norway, in Iceland, Brazil.
Right, but also
today, the opposition tabled a motion asking the federal government to stop muzzling its scientists.
Stop putting party flags beside people when they're at conferences discussing their work.
The federal government has moved away from funding pure science to now paying for research that more directly benefits industry. A statement from the Office of the Minister of Science and Technology says it will continue to do that to provide jobs. Margo McDermott, CBC News, Ottawa.
All right, let's take a look at today's market activity now. Toronto saw the TSX Composite Index climb 93 points to 12,816. Now posted a 118-point gain, closing at 15,494. And the Nasdaq fell 4 points to 37.17. Canadian dollar up 0.2 to 96.85 cents US. Gold jumped $9 to $1,317 an ounce. Oil was down over $1.50 to 106.59 a barrel. A little bit of a rain delay, but this week's stop on the PGA Tour finally on the books.
Well, yeah, and when you're playing for a $10 million payout, and we should know by Sunday if there's no more rain delays next Sunday, then you don't mind waiting in the clubhouse, even if it is a 6-hour rain delay or whatever. Well, the third of the 4 FedEx Cup golf tournaments wrapped up in Lake Forest, Illinois. Today is the rain-delayed BMW Championship finally came to a close. Canada's Graham Dillette finished at 467. That's 14 shots off the lead, but he does qualify for the Tour Championship later in the week. Jim Furyk couldn't hold the lead despite this birdie putt on 4. He ended up 3 off the lead with a final round 71. Settling for third, Jason Day and Luke Donald had matching 66s to end up at 11 under par, 5 shots off the pace. Nick Watney entered this event with 3 top 10 finishes this year. He has his 4th, closing with a 7 under 64 to end up in second. Zach Johnson would win the 3rd FedEx Cup tournament. He had 6 birdies and no bogeys in the final round, ending up with a 65 and the championship at 16 under par. Tiger Woods finishes 7 strokes back, but the 5-time winner this year has the overall FedEx Cup points lead, entering the Tour Championship, which tees off Thursday. Week 2 of the NFL comes to a close tonight in the Queen City with Cincinnati hosting Pittsburgh. Both teams lost their season openers, and Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger has won the last 13 meetings. Last night, Seattle smoked San Francisco 29-3. Buffalo won its first 24-23 over Carolina. Now the rest of Sunday's story.
Broncos Giants. The Manning brothers combined for over 900 yards and 11 touchdowns in week 1. Third quarter, Peyton to Wes Welker, the first of 2 TD passes by Peyton. He improves to 3-0 against brother Eli. 41-23 the final. Saints-Bucks was delayed over an hour due to lightning. In the final minute, Saints down by 1. Drew Brees to Marcus Colston. Great catch inside the 10, setting up Garrett Hartley for the win. Saints are 2-0, 16-14 the final. Redskins-Packers. Aaron Rodgers threw for a franchise record-tying 480 yards and 4 touchdowns, including 2 to Jordy Nelson. Packers win 38-20 as the Redskins fall to 0-2. Vikings-Bears. Chicago down by 6 with 16 seconds on the clock. Jay Cutler to Martellus Bennett for his 2nd touchdown of the day. Chicago with their 2nd straight 4th quarter comeback, 31-30. Titans-Texas tied at 24 in overtime. Matt Schaub to rookie DeAndre Hopkins. His first career touchdown wins it for Houston, 30-24. Chargers trailing the Eagles by 4 in the 4th. Eddie Royal collects the pass from Phillip Rivers and scampers in for his 3rd touchdown of the day. After the Eagles tied it at 30, Nick Novak from 46 yards out wins it for the Chargers. Rams and Falcons. Matt Ryan to Julio Jones, gone. He had 11 catches for 182 yards, including this 81-yard score. Atlanta takes it 31-24. Browns and Ravens. Joe Flacco's wife delivered their 2nd child about an hour before the game. 4th quarter, Flacco spots Marlon Brown. He's into the end zone for the 2nd straight week as the Ravens win their home opener 14-6. Lions-Cardinals. Just over 2 minutes to play. Rashard Mendenhall fights his way into the end zone. Arizona comes back to win 25-21. Cowboys-Chiefs. 4th quarter, Alex Smith to Dwayne Bowe for the go-ahead score. Chiefs are 2-0, matching their win total from last season, 17-16. Jags-Raiders. Marcel Reese finds the end zone from 11 yards out. Oakland ran for 226 yards compared to 34 for Jacksonville. Raiders take it 19-9. Dolphins-Colts. Mike Wallace wanted more touches. He had 9 of them for 115 yards, including this first quarter touchdown. Miami is 2-0. They take it 24-20.
Well, week 12 in the CFL wrapped up Sunday with BC hammering Montreal 36-14, and Canada's dream of reaching the Davis Cup final for the first time would come to an end in Belgrade yesterday as Serbia rallied to win both singles matches and the best-of-5 semifinal 3-2. But many believe the best is yet to come for Canada. Jeff Semple reports.
No one really expected they would get this far. 23-year-old Vasek Pospisil and Milos Raonic, just 22, advancing to the semifinals at the Davis Cup, one of the top tournaments in tennis. So impressive that if not for those red shirts, you'd never guess they're Canadian.
We're just taking this sport to a new level.
And today, Team Canada was poised to take their game to its highest level yet, one victory away from advancing to the World Finals. Pospisil facing off against Serbia's Janko Tipsarevic, and Raonic, ranked 11th in the world, taking on the man who's ranked number 1, Novak Djokovic.
It's the first time in history a Canadian tennis team has made it this far in the Davis Cup. And for the first time, a lot of hockey-crazed Canadians are talking tennis.
John Hess has played tennis for years, but never watched it so closely.
Typically, we wouldn't be watching the Davis Cup very often.
But this year?
This year, well, are the Canadians in it? Yes. So are we watching it? Yes.
It's massive. I mean, people want heroes.
This Tennis Canada coach says the recent success of those hometown heroes is reflected most at the youth level. This year, his junior tennis program has a waiting list.
Kids at that 6, 7, 8 years of age are really starting to participate.
And ask these tennis hopefuls who their favorite player is, and they've got a couple to choose from.
Like the idol or the role model that's up there that you can strive to be somewhat, maybe half as good as they are.
But in the end, today, they weren't good enough, each falling in straight sets to the Serbians.
He got it!
But by the reaction from their fans, even their own coach, you'd never know it.
To me, it goes beyond words.
Jeff Semple, CBC News, Toronto.
In senior men's baseball playoff action last night, the Coastal Steel Orioles grabbed a 2-1 series lead, blanking the Boston Pizza Red Sox 4-zip. The other semi is knotted at 1 as the on-deck A's outslug the Daytona Dodgers 8-5. Blue Jays have the night off. They'll host the New York Yankees tomorrow night. The Orioles and Jays wrapped up their series yesterday afternoon at the Rogers Center. Bottom of the second, Adam Lynn goes deep off starter Miguel Gonzalez. He'll find the second deck and right to open the scoring. Top 3, 2 on, 2 out for Danny Valencia. He'll find the corner off Jays hurler Mark Burley. Both runners count on the double. O's with the lead 2-1. Next inning, after a bases-loaded walk to Chris Davis, which forced in a run, Ryan Goins takes a hit away from Adam Jones with a great defensive play. Now the Jays would load the bases in the 7th, and Moises Sierra would be at the bat, but he ends up not delivering. He'll strike out. Baltimore takes the rubber match 3-1. Now some NHL preseason action from London. It's the Leafs and Flyers. First period, Nazem Kadri with the patient toe drag, and then the great shot after beating Hal Gill to make it 1-0 Buds. Barry wants a replay of that one. Don't have one. Now 2-zip Toronto later in the first. Mason Raymond sent in home free, short-handed. He won't miss, and it's 3-0. Philly did close to within a goal, and then they'll tie it as a Hal Gill shot caroms off the end boards to Nick Cousins for the equalizer. But the Maple Leafs, as they will do often in the regular season, would win their preseason opener 4-3. It's nice to have the last word. Hey, it's good to have hockey back. Lakehead's hockey team, by the way, will carry 26 players this season, including 2 fifth-year seniors, 4 seniors, and 8 rookies. Former Thunder Bay North star Matt Corella, who was their leading goal scorer last year, has made the team. The preseason opener, about a couple of weeks away, they'll go up against the PEI Panthers at the Gardens early in October.
Did you say hockey's back?
You know,
I
enjoy
don't think
while
it
you
left.
can, Chef. You probably won't even want to mention the Leafs by the time we hit January.
That's
so
probably
enjoy it for now.
right.
All right, well, tonight we've got a couple of new shows on, or at least one new show and one returning. Most of the new premieres are coming up next week, but if you can't wait, well, just sit down and enjoy tonight. With more, here's Teletalk.
Tonight we've 2 premieres and a finale on Global Thunder Bay. Starting at 8, Bones returns and the team investigates a body found in an air conditioning vent. Then at 9, in the premiere of Sleepy Hollow, Ichabod Crane wakes up in the 21st century. And at 10 p.m. on the season finale of Under the Dome, the identity of the monarch is revealed. Over on CKPR Thunder Bay tonight, we have absolute proof and some not-so-clear answers. First at 8 on Murdoch Mysteries, one of Williams' colleagues is implicated in a suspicious murder. Then at 9, in the midst of a brazen daylight robbery, a thief has a mental breakdown on Cracked. Teletalk is brought to you by Points, the traffic ticket specialists.
We definitely noticed the cool down this past few days here in our city, but we're hoping, Fiona, to get a little bit more nice warm weather before we see a real cool down.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a few more bursts of heat, and one of them could actually start in the next 24 hours. Today we topped out at about 15 Celsius, although it was a beautiful sunny day. So even though it may have been a degree or two below normal for this time of year, it was still glorious out there. If we take a look at what's going on to the west, Vancouver's got a lot of gray skies and a lot of rain in their future for the next 7 days. Cooling down in Prince George at 12, 27 today in Edmonton. But by tomorrow, it's going to be back to seasonal for both Edmonton and Calgary. Meanwhile, Saskatoon and Regina records, well, close but no cigar. Maybe a couple degrees off, but a gorgeous day, and they should get another day or so of these wonderful temperatures before it starts to cool down. Meanwhile, Winnipeg at 21 saw some pretty gusty winds from the south at about 50 kilometers per hour, and there's more to come on Tuesday. Then we see a real drop in temperature pretty much across the board. Sault Ste. Marie has a frost warning in effect, and that's affecting many areas east of Sault Ste. Marie. Meanwhile, Toronto currently at just 12 Celsius. They topped out at just a sweltering 13 today, so they're not impressed, I'm sure. Ottawa, Montreal, about 12 Celsius at this time. Quebec City also under a frost warning for tonight. And as we head into the Maritimes, definitely a cool day today. But and that frost warning is continuing into New Brunswick. But most of the Maritimes is actually going to see a bit of a warm-up later in the week. If they can wait a day or two, they're going to see temperatures in the low 20s. Meanwhile, St. John's today saw partly cloudy skies, a high of 19. They're currently at 15 Celsius. Now, today we had sunny skies. As we head into tomorrow, another day of sun. There is a little bit of activity brewing to the south and to the north of us, but here we are in the middle of it, missing most of it for much of Wednesday, although by Wednesday night we could see some precipitation. Tonight, cool temperatures, single digits pretty much across the board, but tomorrow we start to see a nice warm up, high teens, low 20s, looking very good. And if we take a look at what the winds are doing, they're going to be fairly light tonight. That's these blue areas. But as we head into tomorrow, well, we're looking at bit of an increase in those wind gusts. Okay. Now at this hour, we're still at our high of 15 Celsius, mainly sunny skies. Tonight, a low of 4 under mainly clear conditions. Tomorrow, we'll start the day at about 9 under mostly sunny skies. By the afternoon, we'll hit our high of 18 Celsius. And then you see the warm-up happening. Wednesday, 22 under a mix of sun and cloud, probably the best day. By Thursday, though, we could see some of that precipitation to the north and the south. Anywhere from 5 to 10 millimeters is possible. And then it starts to cool down again as we head into the weekend. Saturday's probably going to be our coolest day. A high of 13 is expected. And that is your forecast.
The human lungs are a natural wonder, but many people wonder how they actually work. In this week's edition of Cool Science, Emily Curtin looks at the ins and the outs of these vital organs.
Exercising is a really important part of a healthy lifestyle. Your whole body can benefit from a little walk in the park or a swim at the beach, but the organ that will thank you the most is your lungs. Your lungs are truly amazing because they rid your body of the carbon dioxide that's produced by your cells and exchange it for the oxygen in our atmosphere. Your lungs are made out of spongy, elastic tissue that moves when driven by muscular contractions. These muscles work together to expand and contract the chest cavity. When they expand, the pressure in the chest cavity is lowered and air rushes into the lungs. When they contract, the pressure increases and the air rushes out. Smoking can reduce the lungs' elasticity, which means that over time, it can become harder to exhale. The buildup of tar can also lead to cancer. If you choose to smoke every day for 25 years, this is what your lungs could look like. Notice the difference? So take a walk, ride your bike, and breathe. Your lungs will thank you for it. Now that's cool science. For more information, visit tbnewswatch.com.
Well, as most parents know, musical instruments can cost a pretty penny, but you don't necessarily need top-notch equipment to make music. We'll have that for you right after these words.
Well, this pair proves you don't need a fancy drum set to make a good beat. All you need are their hands, a few pens, and a tabletop. They're students at the University of Washington who say they just couldn't afford drum sets. So they took to YouTube to put their pen drumming talents on display. An impressive performance. It even includes choreographed moves. No wonder it's had more than 40,000 views in just over a week. I think we could do that. all
This
of
is
us
why
all
you
together.
send your kids to university, right?
Of course.
So they can make YouTube videos about drumming with pens.
Well, they don't know what else to do with pens because they're so used to computers.
Perhaps that's true. Let's
Probably
recap our
confused by
top
it.
story of the day for you now. Ontario Conservative leader Tim Hudak was in town to unveil his new plan for the Northern Ontario. Their Pathway to Prosperity plan talks about things like the Ring of Fire and bringing jobs to the north, but it's very short on specifics, detailing no information about how the jobs that are promised are actually going to be created.
And week 2 in the NFL comes to a close in Cincinnati tonight. It's a battle of two teams in the AFC North as the Bengals host the Steelers. We'll have highlights later on.
And a cool night ahead. No frost warning, but it is going to be on the chilly side and a chilly start to tomorrow. The good news is we're going to see a little boost in temperatures over the next couple of days. 18 as the high tomorrow, and then on Wednesday, a high of 22. Looks like you won't need your umbrellas for at least 2 or 3 more days.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. See you again next time.